Hi, Katie. This is Adam Hops.
Hey, Adam. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Well, I was thinking, I wonder if it might be worthwhile. Is Tony on?
He is not on yet.
Okay. Well, when he gets on, I might ask him, they have the joint operations policy statement.
Yes.
And that might be something worth putting up as a file to download.
I probably have that somewhere.
I have it, I could send it to you in 2 seconds. Let
Okay.
me just do that just so you have it. I was going to say, I just did all their training stuff for them.
I was going to put up our case study on what he's going to discuss as well. Do you think that's okay?
Oh, that's good.
Adam, Katie.
Hi, Jim.
Hi there. I apologize. I have to step off this call for just a minute. I'll be right back.
No problem.
Thanks.
There you go.
Hello, Adam.
Yes, who's this?
This is Tony.
Hey, Tony. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
Good. I'm just loading up the computer part here.
Fantastic.
It's making me load the software, Adobe Connect stuff.
Yep, not a problem.
Okay, it says it's successfully installed. I guess exit. Now it's asking me to enter the Adobe Connect meeting seminar or content URL.
Yeah, so that's the one that I sent you, noco.adobeconnect.com/noco.
Oh, maybe just need to relaunch that. Request entry.
Perfect.
Adam, Katie.
I can
Yes.
get off of the phone and get onto the computer, it looks like.
So, Tony, real quickly, take a look at your slides are here and uploaded. So what I'm going to do throughout is I'll move the layouts around so you'll see different presentations come up. I believe we have you going second after Jim Mostrich. And your presentation's here and uploaded. If you see there's two arrows on the bottom left of the screen to go forward and backward to move your slides. So you can do that as you present. Your audio sounds great. You won't be muted. Everybody else will, but the presenters won't be. So if you could control your own mute noise while
Sure.
other people are speaking. And then other than that, we should be good to go.
Is it just the arrows at the bottom there that change
Yes.
to go through the slides? Cool.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Then Tony, would you mind if we shared the joint operations document, the agreement?
The charter itself?
Yes.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I didn't realize you had it already.
Katie just sent it over.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So yeah, and then at the end, this is our Q&A screen where we also have like your presentation PDF format available for download. Jim, are you back with us?
I am, Adam.
I meant to ask you. I meant to ask you yesterday and forgot to send you an email. Would you mind if we asked the question here on the screen at the end about data on emergency access gates? We've had a few inquiries from our ASHTO committees on which states have them, and we're trying to collect that information. I was wondering if you'd mind if we asked that.
Not at all, Adam. You go right ahead.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And greetings to Tony, and a big thank you as well as Adam, Tennessee, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. And just for me, Adam, your last name is pronounced Monsiváis?
Vice.
Monsiváis.
Monsiváis, correct.
Monsiváis, thank you. And Tony, yours?
Last name is said as line gang, like a line in a gang.
Thank you, Tony.
All right, so I'll to the presenters. I'm going to go ahead and let in folks and get rid of that echo. So if you need to get a hold of me, let's use the chat box that's up above the attendee list. Thank you again to everyone. Well.
Hey Adam, it's Patrick.
You have been muted. Your microphone has been turned on.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on our webinar today, our Talking Tim webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started in a couple of minutes. Just hang tight. We're just sorting out one or two minor audio issues, and so making sure that's going to get sorted out correctly. So give us about 2 or 3 minutes and we'll get going.
Hey everyone, this is Adam Hops from the National Operations Center of Excellence. We're going to go ahead and get started here in just a few minutes. We have a few folks who are signing on. Thanks to everybody who's chiming in there in the question and discussion pod box. We love to hear from all of you. Again, we'll get started in just a couple minutes. A few more folks are logging on now. We want to let them be here for the beginning. Thanks again. All right, everyone, this is Adam Hops from the National Operations Center of Excellence. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Before I turn it over to Jim Ostrich for the FHWA TIM program update and to introduce our speakers for today, just a few ground rules for those who maybe haven't been on a Talking TIM webinar yet this year. Everyone will be muted throughout this webinar, but as folks are doing now, please feel free to use that question and discussion pod to ask questions of our presenters. We will have a Q&A at the end, give everybody a chance to interact around these two great presenters and, of course, with Jim's update. So please do use that question and discussion pod. We've also provided some links there below the presentation. Do be sure to check out the case studies, the NOCO case studies that are there. We have case studies on both of the topics that are being presented on by Tennessee DOT and by Washington DOT. They wrote those case studies for us and are in there. So check those out and search there. They're going to talk a lot today about how they've updated and improved upon the work that they're doing from those case studies that were captured a year and a half ago. But worth seeing those. We also, at the end of the presentation in the Q&A portion, we'll have the presentations available for download along with a couple other documents you might find interesting. All these webinars are recorded and they're available on the NOCO YouTube channel. There's a link there in the box for that. And then also register for our newsletter down there in the bottom. If you haven't, that's the first way to get these webinars when they're available. Our newsletter goes out every 2 weeks. It's full of great information, a lot of TIM-focused information as well. So if you haven't already, register for the NOCO newsletter there. And with that, I will turn it over to Jim Ostrich. Thank you, Jim.
And thank you, Adam and Patrick. Big thank you, as always, for the support and partnership with the National Operations Center of Excellence for Excellence, and everyone for joining us today. We are, well, first of all, let me say that my partner here, colleague, Paul Joden, isn't able to join us today, but Paul is in Houston, Texas today doing great work with the International Association of Chiefs of Police. We're coming off a phenomenal, exciting week commemorating National Traffic Incident Response Awareness Week. The responder community and you, TIM champions across this land that have done so much in the name of highway safety and traffic incident management good practices. And I'm just fired up, as is Paul and everyone on this call and so many others of our national TIM community should be as well. You're going to hear a couple more comments regarding the activities of last week. But first, let me start with the update as of the 20th. We're now fast approaching 450,000, 500,000 responders trained. Just quite an achievement. Again, you should all be proud of. And obviously a big topic during last week's summit at headquarters. One thing I want to point out here again, the first bullet, if you will, the train the trainers. You've heard me, many of you have heard me say that, you know, we've trained, as you can see, 12,467 professionals, public safety discipline, multidiscipline trainers since June of 2012. And 23% represents 2,867 trainers. Just under 3,000 trainers is what has gotten us to that total trained, not including the almost 60,000 web-based, that have taken it online. But I think it's worth mentioning, strategizing with Paul and Katie, our contractor, on how we may actually engage those other trainers, almost 9,000 or so, that haven't done anything. But it's something for you to think about yourself and your state. Regardless, tremendous success we've had and moving forward here, you can see the train-to-trainer map that shows all the state, federal highway-sponsored train-to-trainers, as well as state and local led and funded and co-sponsored train-to-trainers. I encourage you to keep training, taking up the mantle of training your own best trainers, if you will, to be master instructors or master trainers in your state. The cadre or your bench of trainers tends to, over time, I guess, thin out. So there are a number of states that are doing this to kind of replenish that bench. So the point that I need to make there, and any help that you need, please contact Paul and myself and Katie for any support moving forward. Here's the number again of the trainers nationwide. Again, only 2,867 of this 12,467 are actively training by and large. This map is the map showing both those trained in person as well as the web-based that I mentioned. Don't shy away from web-based training. That's my message. And as the key manager here at Federal Highway overseeing the training, I'm constantly, I just did 3 conferences in the past 8 weeks, and there are states that are still kind of not taking advantage, if you will, from their, of the web-based training, whether it's NHI through our training arm of the National Highway Institute, or through ResponderSafety.com. If you're not familiar with that organization, just Google it, and you'll see that there's a TIM certificate, the TIM 4-hour web-based training there as well. And again, as you always hear Paul and I say, yes, this training is best taken face-to-face. There's no doubt about it, but we need to take advantage and reach those responders that can't get to an in-person class. Ladies and gentlemen, there are many responders that can't. So you have to use this tool, this web-based tool that's out there, and at least they'll get it, and maybe one day when there's a training nearby, they can interact and take advantage of a local course, regional course. So next slide here is the total trained. Another second here. The quilt map, is our director likes to call this map. You've seen Paul and I, use this map, continuously. The goal is to train 45% or more. I believe, if Katie may correct me, but I think we're at 19 states that are well, over 45%, which is in itself a phenomenal achievement. And so your responder populations, you got to try to get in there and think of ways to your TIM committees, your partners, all your stakeholders, and think of ways to jumpstart the training. We understand, we get it. It's part of the process where training tends to wane and go by the wayside. And then there's spurts of activity, but it's up to you as the leaders for your state, your program, your TIM programs, to keep the training going. We have a goal, as you can see, lower left in parentheses, of over 1 million responders to train that are based on the number that you see here in parentheses, but the number is actually closer to 2 million, truth be known. This is the bar chart showing, again, the percentages, multidiscipline. And I'd like to share real quick again that soon, by mid-20, the EMS community, in particular paramedics and EMTs, are going to be able to get continuing education credits, Con Ed, for certification, recertification. You've heard me say that as well because of the partnership that Federal Highways established with the Commission on Accreditation for Pre-Hospital Continuing Education, mouthful, CAPC as it's known, and the International Association of Directors of Law Enforcement Standards and Training, for those law enforcement officers on the call today, retired or active. IADLIST, as I just mentioned, we are now finally moving forward to partner with IADLIST in a quest to provide the same kind of Con Eds or certification for law enforcement, both academy, but most importantly, for in-service training. Once you're a police officer, you graduated, you've been in the field X number of years, 1, 2, 20, 30, whatever it is, we want to do the same thing with IADLIST. And both organizations, by the way, executive directors and president, President Mike Bakar from IADLIST and Jay Scott from CAPC, excuse me, were present at the summit last week. Moving forward, the summit, as I mentioned, just a couple little slides here to tease you. This is what, pardon me, I'm sorry. On day one of the summit, we convened on last Thursday, the 14th, at the Navy Yard. The event for day one actually occurred at the Navy Yard, not at headquarters, but they're next door to each other. And day one, it's just unbelievable. There was, I believe, 105. I'm so sorry. Pardon me. 105 executive CEOs attended the summit, and that's double that occurred or participated in 2015 summit and the 2012 summit. So a big deal, a huge deal. And many new organizations such as the National Association of Counties, the National League of Cities, the National Governors Association, AAA, AMBA, and I can't think of all of them right now, but many new partners, and there's a lot of energy that we're going to capitalize on here with like the top 10 topics, high level, per the executives' feedback during the whole entire day, last Thursday discussion, and then ended on Friday morning at around 11:30, where then we walked out to the plaza here. This is the 3rd Street Plaza between both buildings at USDOT headquarters, and convened this event. Again, these are all the executives that you see here sitting, and the responder community from Maryland, D.C., Virginia in the background. It was just fabulous. That person in the podium, by the way, is retired State Trooper Bob Bemis, that many of you may have met or heard. He was struck and severely injured. He walks with crutches in both arms, and he told his story on Friday, and it's very, very moving and very apropos, hammering home the message of Struck By and the work that we do to protect responders and motorists across our land. And by the way, we're at excuse me, we're at, as of last week, we're at 39 line of duty deaths, all disciplines combined. With that, I'm moving here to the proclamation that was signed. Sorry that you can't read all the whereas that are on the proclamation, but it starts out with, that we shall promote move over laws, collection of data, excuse me, and everything you see here to the left on this slide. Okay, so some of the here's a few slides of some of the great work that occurred from, I think it was 43 states that we had that ultimately participated in the planning calls leading up to last week's Awareness Week. And this is the example of Arizona, who did an incredible job. I forget how many counties statewide that participated in like a mega training, TIM training event last Wednesday. They called it Super Wednesday, but I believe, well, it says it right there. It was over 400 that registered and got trained on that day alone. So kudos to Arizona. Similarly, Florida, which every year does a tremendous job with public outreach through the Road Rangers program at filling stations throughout the state, and just getting the word out. And I know there's many more, and I am going to, here's Oregon, of course, with their social media program. Oregon, Georgia, and Maryland are the only 3 states that I'm aware of that actually have newsletters and outward-facing, you know, doing a lot of social media, not just during National Traffic Incident Response Awareness Week. And as a reminder, the second week in November, right, every year is our week, but public education and outreach on TIM you should be doing, we highly encourage you to do throughout the year. And with that, of course, you guys know Paul and myself, and if there's anything that we can do to support you, we are all in on this. And I just want to say before we go to our next speaker, that we're capitalizing on this summit. Okay, it's such a big deal. I cannot tell you. It is. There's so much that's going to come out of this summit, and the great discussion. The leaders, many of them knew we're all in, and they are all in, and they're asking how they can help. And that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted to take the national TIM training and national TIM programs, because let's understand, it's not just the training, it's TIM programs with technology, as well as TMCs and ITS and oh my gosh, data collection performance measures that we need to continue to grow nationally. So with that, I am, let's see. Honored, excuse me, honored to introduce Tony Lyongang. You can see right there, Tony is the administrator for Washington State's TIM activities, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about how they're, again, similarly what I said about how things kind of fall by the wayside. Always remember TIM is perishable, just as it's a comment that I make, but certainly Washington State has always been a leader, but they are working to reinvigorate their program. So with that, Tony.
All right, thanks, Jim. Appreciate the introduction. A little bit about me. Been with Washington State DOT for my almost entire career, about in my 29th year right now. The last 13 years I was in one of our regions as our freeway operations manager, responsible for our traffic management center, incident response team, ITS elements, and emergency management things. So in general, I've kind of been living and breathing and promoting myself, talking TIM for a long time. For our group, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that I am using and sharing this information. This is how we try to motivate folks that, Washington State is not to 45% yet. We got a lot of work to do. So this is what these slides that you guys share out from FHWA, I am making sure now that they get out to everybody that I can come in contact with so that they have an awareness of where we're at. So I've been in this role for only a couple months now, but one of my first orders of work to do this past fall and starting in around September was working with Katie Belmore and bringing together representatives from our Washington State Patrol, Fire Services, and Emergency Management. We really wanted to develop and kind of institutionalize more Washington State-centric version of the responder training, but we wanted to make sure that it still met the goals and needs of the national training. So we did that by simply, updating localized pictures. We wanted to have more emphasis on our local agency partners. They're just as important as well as our towing service partners as part of the team. So a little more emphasis in terms of pictures and discussion on arterials and local roads. It's not just a freeway thing. And then we actually produced, for very low cost and embedded in our TIM training, a new safety video production that really kind of highlights just takes a second near-miss type of stuff that actually happened to some local team members with our incident response team, and just kind of some of that emotional taking care of yourself after you see stuff out there or you're otherwise affected by doing the work that we do out there. This is another element that we developed in kind of our Olympic region of Washington DOT, where we're really trying to tie together, and it's been kind of successful, at least in that region so far, to kind of deal with ICS 100 and 200 are being trained in the morning for our WSDOT folks, and then we kind of try to relate with this chart that you see here, kind of all the parts and pieces of a larger incident, and try to institutionalize and understand everybody's got a role, that question of who's in charge and when. And so this is now a slide within our local Washington-based TIM training that helps folks kind of see, rather than more of a generic ICS chart, something that's a little more relatable to the way that we want to operate locally here. The other thing that we've been doing ever since we got started here, we got that pushed out here with Katie's help here in November. And over the past little while, well, this is showing information from the past year, we've added 62 new TIM trainers. We've also added about a little over 1,100 newly trained TIM people in person. It's not to say that we shouldn't be doing web-based training as well, but those are the numbers that I've been involved with since I've been here. One cool thing that we found is an incentive that we didn't realize we weren't taking advantage of. The registered tow truck operators that our Washington State Patrol contracts with, they're required to do some form of 4 hours of training every 5 years. And we just asked the question, and it was a resounding, of course, answer that TIM training is a qualifier for that. So now they're motivated to, they got to pay to take somebody to training anyways. This is free training, and it qualifies. So that's a very positive thing that we think we're going to see a lot more tow truck operators in our ranks pretty soon as far as being trained. Similarly, we've had a lot of interest with our City of Seattle partners, our Washington Fire Chiefs Association. A few hundred of those 1133 trained in TIM are WSDOT maintenance responders. And so tying that emergency management group together with maintenance, which is a huge push in Washington State right now, along with working closely with our local partners, has really been paying off. There's a lot of interest in assuring that this training keeps going. We're making sure that we're pushing everybody to the watimcoalition.org website to make sure that we get our training numbers in one spot and off for counting at the federal level. So a little bit about what my role is really supposed to be more focused on is setting up these joint operations groups. I was involved in this crossover fatality incident in my past job back in 2013. And this is in a really constrained corridor area of Interstate 5, where we have basically water on one side of us and the Joint Base Lewis-McChord on the other side. We figured out that we could do a lot better if we were just kind of better prepared and planned ahead more with our partners along that corridor. And so that resulted in the creation of this I-5 JBLM Joint Operations Group. So we wanted to mean business about creating this working group, and so we actually had our executive leadership sign the charter that describes what we're here to do. And basically it's focused all around basically TIM initiatives and trying to figure out how to not just do traffic incident management, but institutionalize it. I don't know if everybody knows that the leadership at a major Department of Defense facility like this changes every 2 years. And so if we don't kind of understand and institutionalize what we're doing, it's really easy for a new commander to come in and decide to go a different way. And so we've been pretty successful with that. In this example that some of you may remember, same spot as that 2013 incident, almost 4 years to the day. We had the Amtrak Cascades passenger train 501 derailment onto the freeway. And so we were way better positioned to take care of our needs to respond to that. And even though it was a 3-day closure, we had, everybody knew everybody before we got there. We had a really well streamlined way to coordinate and work together and deal with this incident. So moving forward, excuse me, one thing that came from that was kind of modeled after the JBLM version was the Seattle Area Congestion Management Joint Operations Group, also known as the SAJOG. Very similar chartered, a lot of the same types of responder community, just localized to the Seattle area. Currently, I'm working with developing the charter with the Tacoma Area Joint Operations Group, which kind of closes the gap between the southern end where JBLM is and the northern end where Seattle is. So everyone along the corridor is trying to kind of get involved in this. I actually just got new information yesterday evening, actually, that there's desire to start up a Stevens Pass, Mountain Pass type joint operations group as well. And we're looking at Snoqualmie Pass and further east as soon as possible. So these are going to be kind of the vehicles that we're going to try to house and institutionalize in local areas where we do TIM, where we have folks, kind of on point to make sure that we continuously train new responders coming in, and just kind of have that opportunity to make it kind of more of a larger effort, and that's kind of how we're working to reinvigorate TIM in Washington State. So with that, if there's any questions, or we can wait till at the end.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Adam?
Yes.
Pardon me, I was on mute. I just wanted to thank Tony profusely. It's obvious, that there's a lot of work that he and the team there, his team, are putting into reinvigorating the program, as his slide said. And you made a whole bunch of points there, Tony. I won't repeat them, but you certainly hit on the key ones, certainly with all your stakeholders first and foremost, not just the responders or teams that are responding to crashes along interstates. I think you mentioned arterials and local roadways, which is a really good point, because we need to collectively, nationally, do a stronger job of reaching out to those stakeholders. And you mentioned the towers. I want to mention Public Works are a big part of our team, and they've ramped up tremendously their partnership, the American Public Works Association of America, FYI to everyone. Don't leave them out, just like you shouldn't leave towers out. This is not just about police, fire, rescue, EMS. So thanks again, Tony.
You're welcome. That's great points. And I, one of the models that we're trying to use that I have the fortunate, ability to come from our Olympic region, but the administrator there has gotten so supportive of this that he's required of the 4 maintenance areas. He wants 2 TIM trainers at all times in those maintenance areas, and he wants everybody in his maintenance force trained. And so I'm trying to carry that along to our other 5 regions.
Excellent. 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 Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Adam, go ahead. You want to give it? Let's see, our next speaker. Okay. Let's welcome Adam Monsivais with Tennessee Department of Transportation. Tennessee being a leader as well, for sure. And Adam's going to share with us the Protect the Queue program, which is a hugely important program and spreading as well across the country in particular, and geared toward focused on reducing secondary crashes. So with that, Adam.
Thank you. So, hi everybody. My name's Adam Monsivais. I manage the traffic management office for TDOT. My office supports the TMCs, the Safety Service Patrol, the TIM, and the traveler information programs for the state. So I was asked to present on the Protect the Queue program, and I just started with the state 5 months ago. 5 months ago today, actually. So I found it was a good opportunity for me to dig in and learn more about the program, because I knew of it, I knew how it worked, but the history and the data behind it was really interesting for me to dig into. So the PTQ program had its roots, unfortunately, in tragedy. Back in 2013, the 12th annual Bonnaroo Festival was scheduled to start in June. Every year, about 100,000 fans come to outside of Nashville to the farmlands, rural areas, to see concerts. So 4 days of music, so it's usually a lot of fun. But that year, a minor accident, an incident occurred on 24, just after midnight at opening day. Even at time of night, volume was pretty heavy. So the left lane was blocked and the queue built up pretty quickly. So this is Brandon and Deja. They had traveled down from Indiana to catch the show, and they were caught up in the queue when a tractor trailer slammed into their car doing about 70 miles an hour. Reports I read, I was doing research on it, and the reports I read said they died instantly. 7 cars were hit, tractor trailer flipped and skidded down the road. Several cars were fully engulfed in flames, and a lot of other people were injured. After this, TDOT immediately saw that increased queue protection was a priority. And I say increased in that the TMCs have always alerted motorists of incidents using their DMSs, and we've always sent our help programs to provide protection at the incident scenes. But, the trucks get hit. Even when they're trying out there to protect people, they're still in danger. And we don't have good coverage in all our rural areas for the DMS to provide alerts. So with the leadership from the then Commissioner John Schover, the Protect the Queue initiative was started. This movement stressed to all TDOT employees and partner agencies the importance of protecting drivers caught in traffic queues. The TDOT operations signed new operations guidelines that set the standards on how they're going to protect motorists who are caught up in traffic backups. These guidelines also mandated the training that is required for the program. A training program on the most effective queue management techniques was launched. These are just a couple of the slides from the classroom portion. And when I was going through them, I found it very helpful that it wasn't just, how to operate the error boards or how to set up the cones or anything like that. It was a lot of technique, and they hit on visibility, light discipline, line of sight awareness, stopping distances versus speed. It's about all the different aspects of traffic control that provided a good, solid focus on the dangers at the end of the queue. And they reinforced it with ICS training that I'm sure most of us are familiar with and have gone through. The dispatching procedure is pretty simple. It's not that complicated. In the event of a situation where a queue is developing, the TMC notifies the district, and appropriate resources from the nearest TDOT facility are dispatched to the scene. TDOT notification can come from just about any partner. So I took this picture of the cards. We have these cards that we hand out to all our stakeholders, all our partners, and it has the numbers, direct lines to the TMCs on the back, and as well as what they need to know on the front. So when I was talking to someone earlier today, actually, I found out that when this project was first rolled out, these cards were handed out pretty much to virtually every TDOT employee, with the idea that it's their mission too to provide notification for the queue alerts. So if they're on their way to the lake or shopping or whatever, and they see something, then they should report it to the appropriate TMC, and it gives all the information on it that they need. For a typical incident, when a typical incident happens, a Class 1 truck is dispatched. It's just a standard full-size pickup truck with equipped with the air board or message board, safety lights and markings. Depending on the incident, 2 trucks might be dispatched based on the severity or the roadway geography or whatever. Hills, curves, overpasses all play a part in that. If the incident is more severe, it looks like it's going to be there for a while longer, a Class 2 protect the queue truck is dispatched. These are the larger, heavier trucks with a messenger air board and a mounted attenuator. So the recommended positioning guidance called for positioning the truck to create a quarter-mile buffer zone for the end of the queue. The truck then repositions itself as the queue grows. If a second truck is available, they kind of leapfrog, where the one comes behind it and the other one comes around and comes behind it, and keeps repeating, so there always has someone in the back. So this is a slide I stole from the training deck. It just shows how moving positions can change reaction time for the motorists. You can see drivers moving behind it last minute type thing, but when he slid back, not near the top of the rise, people got a little more alert and were able to see it a lot better. So that helped keep people out of the left lane where the incident is, which is right over that corner. Now, depending on how further back, I believe there's another truck further on down to provide even more protection on that incident. The other portion of the guidance is the required communication with the TMC. The protect queue trucks report on arrival and every 30 minutes and at change points. They update the TMC on the status of the queue. This allows the TMC to update the incident reports, the traveler information sites, and the DMS in the area, adding more visibility to the traffic in the area. So our main partners in this program are law enforcement out in the field. They report and provide initial queue protection until we can get our guys out there. And it takes all of us to be committed to this program to make it work. So it's they're a big part of making this successful. Lastly, I want to mention the special provision that was put out in support of the Protect the Queue program. It states that contractors who are working in controlled or limited access facilities will have adequate queue protection vehicles on hand. The vehicle and training requirements are the same as the TDOT Protect the Queue trucks. So having these vehicles on site obviously cuts the response times anytime there's a queue that is exposed. So I guess see if it's working. I pulled the last few years of secondary incidents statewide from the Department of Safety. 2019 is a projection if we continue on our averages that we've been going on for this previous year. So there's an obviously decrease in the sheer number of secondary incidents. I started digging over the last couple of days into the fatalities to try to find out how that would correlate with it. And I'm also wanting to look into the urban versus rural spin on it as well. But that's where we're going. So it's obviously a success right now. I think we still want to drill in the data to see how we can move it forward and where we can improve on it. Okay.
Adam,
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Protect the Queue, I know there's a number of states that are practicing. For those on today's call, please reach out to Adam, Paul, or myself if you're interested in learning more. Tennessee, Adam, I think in your quest to get more data, last time the percentage that you had there from, what was it, 16 to 19 was like a 30% drop, or if I'm not mistaken, maybe more. But obviously it works. And whether you're using Safety Service Patrol, other response units, obviously law enforcement, there is a definite benefit to these types of practices for states to implement. And on a personal note, I share with people that I tend to be my own queue warning system, and many of you may practice this, which when I'm pulling up, to a queue myself, my POV, I put on my flashers well before I come to a stop sign, or I'm sorry, to the back of the queue, and always watching in your rear view mirror, which, right, it should be part of our standard practice for all of us as drivers to be looking in your mirror. These horrific crashes, as the one that Adam showed us from the concert, they continue to happen. And just like our training specifies, it's hard to fight, right, when you have drunk, distracted, drugged, drowsy, disabled drivers, and you just never know. Here today, gone tomorrow. So very important practice, and it's all our responsibilities to be part of it. So again, Adam, thank you, and the great work. And by the way, congratulations. Welcome to the National TIM community. So, okay. With that, let's see. Adam?
Yes.
Okay,
We're in the Q&A
displaying
portion.
the questions?
Yeah, so we did, unrelated to the two great presentations that we just saw, we've had some recent interest and asks around emergency access gates, and since we have such a great group of TIM professionals here, we wanted to see if there's a sense of anybody who has data on where your emergency access gates are. So I put that poll down there for people to answer if they know. It looks like, Jim, there's a few questions in the question and discussion pod.
Yeah, we have a good bit of time left. Let's take advantage. If you have any thoughts, ideas, suggestions, please type them in the chat pod, or we can open the phone line. Right, Adam?
Sure. If anybody has a thought, they can raise their hand and I can unmute them.
Did anybody answer Sarah Burnworth's question, or did I miss that? Does Washington State DOT have an overall TIM strategic plan or similar document?
Yeah, so I did. I'm in the course of updating that. It's quite dated at this point, and there's some nuances to joint operations groups that we want to make sure we include. So I will certainly be happy to put that out once it's sort of fully hatched. I just need a little more time.
Excellent. Thanks, Tony.
You bet.
And I think Adam already, Adam Hops, that is, mentioned as standard procedure, we send all the presentations out. We make them available as well as the recording.
Yes, and the presentations are there on the right for download, under files for download. as is the joint ops agreement that Tony discussed there at the end. And then the recording will be sent out here in the next week or so.
Thanks, Adam. Question from Southern Maine Planning and Development. Adam, Tennessee, how are the additional resources paid for in terms of the Tennessee effort for protected queue?
From what I understand, the protected queue drivers are the maintenance techs that are out in the field anyway. We probably do have some labor overtime if it comes out after hours, but it's about transition. I believe it's about transitioning their duties at the time of day when it occurs.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we still have a couple new folks joining. Is there another question, Adam, or was it this the only one with the regarding emergency access gates?
This was it. This was it. And we're getting good answers. Thank you to everybody.
Exactly. Katie, are you there? You on mute, Katie?
I'm not on mute. Okay, now my microphone is on. I'm here.
No, Katie, I was just giving you an opportunity to chime in. Anything pressing coming to mind since we have this great audience today?
I mean,
you'd like to share?
The same thing I will remind people is get your training entered, and if you have trouble with SharePoint, let me know.
Indeed, always an important point to make. And I'll piggyback on that. And you hear Paul and I mention this over the years, that we know we're somewhere in the range of 10, 15, even probably 20% in the rears with training stats. We wish that wasn't the case, but it is, and then somebody will pop in and call Katie or email one of us and say, hey, I need help to gain access to the SharePoint site because I've trained 10, 20, 100 or more responders over the past X number of months or years, and I'd like to put them in the system. So who knows? We could easily get us at least 5, 6, 100,000 trained if we had all those numbers. So hence why we always got to keep in communication with your trainer cadre and the national training cadre that I mentioned. But there's certainly a whole bunch that, for whatever reason, don't report it, which is a shame. But anyway. As far as I know, the holidays are upon us here. Paul and I, Katie and the team, we're going to be conducting another webinar regarding the summit last week, and in general, as I said, the activities across the nation with public outreach and education for Tim. But there was just so much information that was shared, and we captured, obviously, during the summit last week from all those executives. You heard me mention top 10 issues or points made that we need to immediately, seize the moment and build, discuss those issues, and it's I believe in my heart of hearts it's really going to help take this program to another level. You heard me mention that as well, and it's just such a blessing. I believe, because what we're doing ultimately does save lives, time and money, and we've only just begun, really. We've only just begun. Whether, I think you heard Tony mention as well, and I think maybe Adam too, that you know, we got to maintain our leaders' buy-in, and one of the key ways to do that is with data. Obviously, data. It's all about data. Data is what it provides the proof in the pudding, whether it's reduction in secondary crashes, fatalities, injuries, roadway clearance time, incident clearance time, all those things. And it behooves you and all of us to work together within your state and your teams to substantiate and show in black and white the return on investment for the TIM program in your state, in your region. And so another point I'll make is the regional conferences that continue across the country. I just went to the one in Kentucky, and a good practice for sure. Consider that. If you're, you know, each one of us has a sphere of influence, each and every one of us, and we can work together and come up with ideas and reach out to your neighbor state, whatever it is, and say, hey, you know, let's do a regional conference. And it could just be 2 states, it could be 5 or 6 states. The same with, you heard the term institutionalization. That's a big word that we're right in the midst of. We have over 117 academies, public safety academies, that is, that have in some fashion adopted the TIM training for new recruits, new cadets. That's a big deal. That we didn't have that 7 years ago. And all those things, you play a role. You can make the difference. Again, you and your partners, hey, let's you know, you may have a trooper, a sheriff, a local police officer, firefighter, battalion chief, fire chief, you name it, you know, DOT executive, administrator, what have you. And you get to put your heads together and you say, okay, well, we've got X number of academies, you know, police, fire in my state, tech colleges. Let's reach out to them. Let's break the ice and see if we can get the TIM training going in that institution. And that's exactly how it's been happening. That's a big deal, and you can do that because we have done it. The other big one that I'm going to, you know, put a little plug in, and that is for the towing. You heard mention again the towers, right? Well, we have 6 states that, by policy or I think a majority, 4 of them, the state police colonels, you may have heard Paul and I mention, mandated that for towers to be on the contract towing rotation list, that the colonel for the state police mandated it through the stroke of a pen of a memo. And I know Tennessee, Adam, just FYI, our dear friend and great Colonel Tracy Trott was the first colonel in the United States to do that by stroke of a pen. I know Kentucky's colonel did the same thing, Virginia colonel, I believe Missouri, and then of course we have Arizona that has it as a matter of policy, and does California Highway Patrol. And I, in a very nice way, made suggestions to 2 colonels that were at the summit last week. You know, asked them respectfully if they could push during their meetings with the colonels, IACP, state, provincial. And by the way, that was Colonel Settle, Gary Settle with Virginia State Police, and Colonel Rappich from Utah. And boy, they're great partners. So I may be rambling on, but I thought I'd share some important points there. Anything else from anyone else?
Jim, Mary had just asked what the other states were that are on Facebook other than Oregon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You mentioned two.
Yeah, I mentioned Oregon. I know New Jersey, right? South Cohen, New Jersey, and of course Maryland.
Okay.
I'm not. Oh, well, I know VDOT. I know VDOT's doing great things with Facebook. Ellen Kamalakis is the senior PIO, and that's another point. Everyone, if you weren't part of the planning calls for Awareness Week, engage your public affairs people, and there's usually one or two specialists that handle the Facebook and tweeting and Instagram, all that kind of social media. That's a great point, Mary, and we all can push that, because that's obviously one of the big ways that we get information. Our constituents get information. So during the summit last week, we talked a lot about, well, we all know what TIM is, but give you an example, move over laws. How many of you knew or know that over 71% of drivers in each state, in the United States, are clueless? They have no idea what their move over law is. And that is from NHTSA. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration pulled that information together. Similarly, on the crash side, and by the way, it's not an accident, it's no accident, it's a crash. So let's not refer to crashes as accidents. We can say they're crashes and they're collisions. Why? Because per NHTSA, over 92% of crashes are caused by human error. Human error, that's bad driving, just bad driving, okay? So it's no accident. These are crashes, and we respectfully ask that everyone try to always refer to them as crashes. Think about it. Human error, right? So I'm rambling on here again. Anyone, Tony, Adam, you guys have any other thoughts?
Just one thing to add, this is Tony, relative to the awareness of the move over laws. We had a great question come from one of our TIM Train the Trainer classes recently that was, what is our Department of Licensing telling people, drivers and driver training, about the move over laws? And so I reached out to a friend at Department of Licensing and discovered that it doesn't even talk about it right now. So we have a updated publication that we're being asked to submit and recommend the language that should go into those driver's guides that will certainly help underline the fact that there even is a move over law.
Outstanding, outstanding, Tony. And when you're done with that, if you could share that with us, Paul and I, we'd like to see that. And also, hence why you heard me mention the American Association of Motor Vehicle. AMBA attended, I believe Mr. Guevara, Gabe Guevara from AMBA attended, and for exactly this reason, how can we further get into the publications and at an early age to the young drivers, and even pre-driving in elementary school or otherwise, high school for sure, right? This kind of information. That's a great point, Tony.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So how much time we have left, Adam? 28 minutes?
Yep.
Okay.
Good, concise presentation today.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to be nice. I'm not going to call on anyone on the attendees list here. Except for one, I haven't spoken to this gentleman in a long time, but he's been a great partner and part of our contract team. Steve Syra, are you there? Steve's on mute. Okay. Well, Adam, how about if we give our distinguished and great friends of the National TIM community on today's call their time back, almost half an hour. I see Steve typing. How do you unmute? How does he unmute?
Take care of this in real time.
Let's give Steve a minute. Steve's a vice president with HNTB and traffic operations engineer, extremely knowledgeable, and may have some words of wisdom for us. Steve, are you there?
I am now here. Sorry about all that. I remember seeing the instruction at the very beginning to unmute, but I completely forgot that. The only thing I wanted to add, and again, thank you to everybody that participated, certainly the presenters. You guys did a fantastic job, and it just goes to show we all have so much to learn. But what I wanted to kind of remark on is I, along with Bob Murphy from AECOM, we assembled a session at this year's ITS World Congress, which was in Singapore about a month ago, 3-4 weeks ago, and we had a phenomenal discussion and a phenomenal series of presentations, including one from Tennessee DOT, where Brad was there. But what I wanted to share with everybody is I think we have a ton to learn from our international colleagues, if you will. And I certainly could, try to do that, try to share some of the PowerPoint slides and whatnot that were shared at our session. But I think we should all kind of put our heads together to figure out, and maybe with Patrick Fun and Adam's help, maybe we could figure out a way to somehow engage some of our international colleagues in this, because it really was enlightening to me that they face some of the very same challenges, and they're doing things with technologies. They're learning from us. We can learn from them. So that's all I guess I wanted to add at this point. But great job, everybody.
Wow. Thank you, Steve. And that's some great feedback and suggestion. I did hear from Bob Murphy as well a couple, 2-3 weeks ago about the super success that the ITS World Congress event meeting was in Singapore. So I think that's a great idea. We just have to, I guess, vet some of it to international, organizations. But I'm sure between Patrick's son, who's on the call today, who's executive director of the National Operations Center for Excellence, and Adam Hops, and of course Federal Highway, our team, we could probably make something happen. I really like that. Idea, Steve.
And Jim, the timing is perfect. And Bob and I, of course, were talking about this. As most of you know, the ITS World Congress alternates between Europe, Asia Pacific, and North America. Well, it's North America's turn next year, and those of you that don't have it on your calendar, October is when the World Congress will be in North America in Los Angeles. So I think we have a phenomenal opportunity with that coming up to really show that this is an international issue. And it warmed my heart to hear that some of our international colleagues are also talking about training and things like that. So
Yeah.
I don't want to belabor the talk now because I get pretty excited about it, but I think there's a great opportunity next fall.
Yes. Well said. Thank you, Steve. So with that, Adam, you want to close us out? I just want to say a big thank you again for everyone, everything you do, and watch for the emails of other upcoming Talking Tim and similar webinars. So again, thank you. God bless. Have great holidays and New Year, everyone. And with that, Adam.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. The next Talking Tim webinar will be the Wednesday before Christmas. We're going to move it up a week in December. So look for the sign-up and registration info on that. Sorry to anybody who had difficulty getting on the website this morning. It looked like there was an Adobe glitch with the email. We'll get that sorted out. But as always, thank you to this fantastic group for participating every month. Thanks to Jim and our speakers, and we'll end the webinar and send you the recording soon. Thanks, everyone.